My sister loved to quiz me in front of everyone to prove I was the dumb one, until the night she picked the wrong question. My sister Vanessa was the smart one in our family, and the way she kept that title was by making sure I looked like the opposite. She quizzed me in front of people for as long as I can remember. It started when we were kids, and it never stopped. At any gathering, in front of aunts, cousins, my friends, anyone, she would turn to me and ask something. Do you even know the capital of Australia? Quick, what is 15% of 80? She always asked with a little smile, already scanning the room, because the point was never the answer. The point was the pause, the moment I fumbled, when she got to raise her eyebrows at everyone so they all caught it. If I got one right, she moved on fast to a harder one until I missed. If I missed, she explained the answer back slowly, in a kind, patient voice, and said it was okay. Not everyone is book smart. She kept a running list of the things I did not know, and brought them out months later in fresh company, so a new audience could watch me miss the same question twice. My mother would laugh and say, "Oh, Vanessa," as if cornering me was a charming quirk instead of a thing my sister did on purpose. Over the years, it became who I was in that family. Vanessa was the sharp one, and I was the sweet but slow one, and everyone believed it because she had been running the demonstration my whole life. She did it at my own birthday, stopped the whole table for a geography question, and when I got flustered, she told everyone I had never been good with facts. She did it in front of my coworkers at a party and told them not to put me in charge of anything important, and when one of them said I basically ran the office, she waved it off and said they were only being nice to me. When I asked her privately to stop, she said, "Relax. It's just a question. Why are you so sensitive?" And then said she was only trying to help me learn. What none of them ever bothered to notice was that I am not slow. I do the books for the company I work for. I catch the mistakes in the numbers. Numbers are the thing I am best at in the world, but that never fit the story Vanessa told, so it never counted. Then came a dinner at my mother's, both sides of the family there. Vanessa was in her element, and partway through the meal she reached for a money question, because she had heard me mention work, and wanted the table to see that even there I was out of my depth. She said, "Okay, something is $40 and it's 30% off. Bet you can't tell me what it costs." She was already grinning at our cousins, so I did something I had never done before. I said, "Why don't you tell everyone the answer first? Since you always know, then I'll go." She loved that, because it let her be the teacher again. She sat up and said, with total confidence, "Easy. 30% off 40 is $10 off, so it's $30. See, it's not hard." She said it to the whole table and sat back. Sure, she had closed the case on me. I let it sit for a second. Then I said, 30% of 40 is 12, not 10. 30% off leaves you paying 28. She said, "No, it's 30. 10 off." I said, 10 off would be 25%, and you said 30. She got louder and said I was overcomplicating it, that everybody knew what she meant. So I walked it out plain so the whole table could follow. 10% of 40 is 4. 3 times 4 is 12. 40 minus 12 is 28. There was no room to argue, because it was math, and math does not care who the smart sister is supposed to be. She kept insisting she was basically right, that I was showing off now. One of our cousins said quietly, "It's 28, Vanessa," and she snapped that everyone was ganging up on her. She said a real store would round it anyway. For the first time in my life, the pause and the eyebrows and the little laugh were on her side of the table, and she could not stand it. She spent the rest of the night telling anyone who would listen that I had embarrassed her, that I had changed, that a real sister would never make her look bad in front of family. Not once did she say the true thing, which was that she had spent 30 years quizzing me to look smart, and had failed her own quiz the one time she had to answer first. I thought she would let it go. She got one question wrong. It happens. But within a week, I was getting calls from relatives I barely speak to, asking why I had been so hard on her. An aunt called to say Vanessa had been crying. An uncle texted that family should build each other up. She was running a campaign, and I was the last to know. So I called her, because I believed one honest conversation could end it. When she picked up, her voice was flat and careful. I said I didn't call to argue. I just wanted to talk about dinner. She didn't interrupt, which was already strange. I told her what it felt like to be quizzed my whole life, every dinner, every birthday, every time I brought someone new around. I told her about the coworkers, and the birthday I spent weeks planning that she turned into another round before I cut the cake, and how it felt to be the sweet one, which everyone knew was a polite way of saying the other thing. I said things out loud I had never said to anyone, and the whole time she just listened. She didn't cut me off. She didn't tell me I was too sensitive. Every few seconds she said okay, or in a quiet voice that made me think she was finally getting it. By the time I finished, I had slid down the wall onto the floor. Then she said, "I hear you. I didn't realize it bothered you that much." Calm, simple, no pushback. The relief made it hard to breathe. I thought that was the conversation that changed everything. I told her I loved her. She said it back. I called my friend Natalia afterward and told her it had gone well, and Natalia said she was glad, but something in her voice was holding back, and I didn't push it. 2 days later, my mother called. Nimue never opens with hello when she has already decided who is right. She said, "Vanessa told me everything you said." I said, "Okay, what did she tell you?" And Nimue said, "You called her stupid. You told her the whole family thinks she's a fraud." I pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at it. None of that came out of my mouth. Not one word of it. What I said was that the quizzing hurt, and I wanted it to stop. But Vanessa had taken every honest thing I handed her and bent it. When I said it hurt to be made to look like the dumb one, that became me calling her stupid. When I said the family only sees me the way she taught them to see me, that became the whole family thinks she's a fraud. She rewrote the conversation and handed my mother a version where I was cruel and out of control. I tried to explain. Nimue cut me off and said, "Vanessa is your sister. She has always looked out for you. The least you can do is apologize." I said I never said those things. She said Vanessa had been in tears, that she didn't want to hear excuses. She had her version, and her version was Vanessa's, and there was no room in her head for mine. I sat there after we hung up with something cold moving through me, because I finally understood. The quiet listening, the soft "I hear you," the gentle "I didn't realize." None of it was real. She was not hearing me. She was collecting. Every honest thing I gave her she was filing away, working out how to flip it, how to make my own words the proof that I was the problem. You cannot have an honest conversation with someone who is only listening for ammunition. Vanessa was not upset because I embarrassed her. She was upset because her tool broke. For 30 years, the quizzing kept her on top, kept me quiet, kept the family seeing what she wanted them to see, and the second it stopped working, she did not try to repair anything between us. She went straight to rebuilding the story, so I stopped trying to fix it quietly. I called Natalia and told her all of it. Every quiz, every dinner, every year of it. She let me get to the end, and then she said, "You know your mom was there for every single one of those, right? She wasn't just watching, she was laughing. You're not just fighting Vanessa. You're fighting the version of you they both agreed on. Hearing a thing you already know lands different when somebody else says it out loud." I wanted to say Nimue just didn't notice, that she was only being a mom, but it was true, and I think I had always known. Every dinner where Vanessa quizzed me, my mother sat right there, not stopping it, laughing and shaking her head like it was cute. Every "oh, Vanessa," in the tone that made cruelty sound playful. And the way she introduced us, the same way every time. Her hand on Vanessa's shoulder, "This is my smart one," and then a look at me, and "This is my sweet one," smiling like she had handed out 2 compliments. Sweet was never a compliment. Sweet was the word she used because she couldn't say the other one out loud, and everyone understood the code, including me, and I kept smiling anyway. There was a Thanksgiving where Vanessa quizzed me, and I actually got it right, and instead of "good job," my mother said, "Well, even a broken clock is right twice a day," and everyone laughed. She said that about her own daughter, and I laughed too, because that was my job. Nimue was not a bystander. She set the stage. She decided which daughter was which, and Vanessa ran with it, and the 2 of them wrote a version of me before I was old enough to argue. 3 days later, my mother called again, and this time her voice was soft and warm, the voice she uses when she wants something from you but wants you to believe it was your idea. She said Vanessa wanted to move past it, that she was putting together a get-together at the house next weekend, just family, to clear the air. She said it like she was handing me a gift. I didn't answer right away because I was doing the math, and not the kind Vanessa gets wrong. She had spent a week and a half calling every relative she could reach to say I had attacked her. She had my mother pressuring me to apologize, and now she wanted everyone in one room. That was not a peace offering. That was a stage. She would have new questions ready this time, ones she had looked up, so the dinner could be filed away as a fluke. I told my mother I would think about it. She said, "Please, honey, just come. Do it for me." I said okay, and hung up. Then I called my cousin Brennan, the one who had said quietly, "It's 28, Vanessa." Brennan is honest in a way most of our family is not. He doesn't pick sides for entertainment. He just says what's true. I asked him straight whether Vanessa had been talking to him about me. The pause before he answered told me before he did. He said, "She called me twice. She said you've been acting different, and she asked whether I'd noticed you'd gotten aggressive." My chest went tight, but not the sad kind of tight. The kind that comes from being right about something you hoped you were wrong about. I asked what he told her. He said, "I told her I didn't see it because I didn't. You corrected a math problem. That's not aggressive." Then he said, "A lot of people at that dinner saw what I saw. They just don't know how to say it yet." I hung up and sat at my dining table for a long time. The old me would have gone, sat in a corner, smiled through whatever Vanessa had planned, and driven home sick. The old me would have apologized to keep the peace. But I had seen the machine from the outside now. I saw how it worked, who built it, and who it was built to crush. So I decided to go, and not to quiz her back, and not to fight. I would ask her one question in front of everyone. Every quiz Vanessa ever gave had a right answer and a wrong answer, and she controlled both. This one had no safe answer. If she said she was helping me, everyone at that table already knew better. If she said it was fun, she would have to explain why the fun always cost me. And if she told the truth, they would all finally see the thing I had lived inside my whole life. My mother called the morning of to remind me to be kind and keep things light, which told me exactly what had been arranged. She wanted me walking in soft and grateful to be included. When I pulled up, the street was lined with cars. Through the front window, I could see aunts and uncles standing with drinks and cousins moving around the dining table. A full audience. Vanessa opened the door before I reached it and pulled me into a hug she held far longer than a hug needs to be held. The kind that is not for the person you are hugging, but for the people watching. Loud enough for the front room, she said she had missed her little sister. She says little sister like it means smaller in every way that counts. When she let go, she kept her hands on my shoulders and studied my face, checking whether the old version of me had shown up. I gave her nothing. For the first half hour, it looked like any family party. I was standing near the counter with 2 of my aunts, when Vanessa wandered over with a glass of wine and said, "Hey, remember when you thought the Great Wall was in Japan? That was so funny," and glanced at our aunts with the grin that invites everyone along. It was a test. I didn't flinch. I said, "You go first. Where is it?" She blinked, and for half a second something flickered across her face, because she had not expected it to come back at her. She recovered and said, "China, obviously." I nodded and said, "Right. So why did you need to bring up a mistake I made when I was 14? The words just sat in the air. My aunts glanced at each other. Vanessa laughed too loud and a beat too late, said something about how I can't take a joke, and moved away. When we sat down, my mother took over. Vanessa's job, how well Vanessa was doing, Vanessa's new apartment, which Vanessa had decorated herself, some award Vanessa had gotten at work, delivered in the proud voice she saves for things she thinks matter. She was rebuilding the pedestal brick by brick in front of everyone. I ate and listened, because I knew my turn was coming. Then it came. She looked down the table and said, "And how's your little office job going, honey?" I caught the word before it finished leaving her mouth. Little. I set my fork down and said evenly, "It's going well. I manage all the financial accounts for the company. They trust me with everything." She blinked, the way she does when something doesn't fit the picture in her head, and said, "That's nice, sweetie," and turned to ask someone about their kids. "That's nice, sweetie. For a job where I handle every dollar that moves through that company, it used to sting." That night, it only confirmed things. It came after the main course, when the plates were mostly empty and the table had gone easy and full. Vanessa sat up straighter, looked around with the smile that means the quiz is coming, and said, "Okay, fun one. Who knows what compound interest is? Let's see who paid attention in school." And she looked right at me, not a glance. She turned her whole body and locked on, and this was the rebuilt quiz, a topic she had studied so she could get it right in front of everyone and put the scoreboard back up. I didn't answer it. I looked at her and said, quietly, but clearly enough for every person at that table, "Vanessa, can I ask you something? Why have you always needed to quiz me in front of other people?" The table went still, not the awkward kind of still, the real kind, where everyone stops because something true has entered the room. She laughed, quick and high, and it didn't reach her eyes. She said, "What are you talking about? It's just fun." I didn't look away. I said, "You did it at my birthday. You did it in front of my coworkers. You did it the first time I brought someone home. You told a coworker not to put me in charge of anything important. Is that fun?" Each one landed like I was setting it down on the table between us. Her smile smile was still there but pulled thin, held in place by effort. She said, "You're being dramatic." I was joking, but the cousins weren't laughing. The aunts weren't laughing. Nobody was looking at me the way they always had, with that half smile of pity. They were looking at her. She swung around in her chair toward our mother, her voice going up. "Mom, are you hearing this? She's attacking me at your dinner table. Tell her to stop." That crack in her voice, the wounded one, the lever that had never failed. My mother looked at me, then at her, then at me again, and said, "Honey, this is a family dinner. Vanessa was just trying to have fun. You don't need to make a scene." The ground shifted under me. After the twisted phone call, after the little office job, after 30 years of laughing through it, she was still choosing Vanessa. For a second I almost swallowed it, but I said, "Mom, she told my coworkers not to trust me with anything important. She quizzed me at my own birthday. That is not fun. That is something she does to me. And you laughed every single time." I said it steady. Something changed around her eyes and her mouth. Small, but I saw it. She shook her head and said, "I never laughed at you." And she said it like she believed it. And maybe she did, because after 30 years, a thing you do without thinking stops looking like a choice. I said, "You called it a charming quirk. You introduced us as your smart one and your sweet one. You picked sides a long time ago." Every person at that table knew what those words meant. They had smiled along the same way I had. My mother's hands went to the edge of the table and I could see them shaking. She stood up slowly, her eyes wet and her jaw set, and said she had raised both of us the same, that she would not sit there and be accused of playing favorites at her own table. Her voice cracked on favorites. Then she walked out and closed the door behind her. Not a slam, just a firm click. The second she was gone, I watched Vanessa smile. Barely there, just a pull at the corner of her mouth, and anyone who hadn't spent a lifetime reading that face would have missed it. In her head, she had won. Mom leaves. Everyone feels bad for Mom, and I become the one who ruined dinner. She reached for her wine like we were all about to move on, and then Brennan spoke. He had been quiet the whole night, the way he always is. He didn't stand, and he didn't raise his voice. He said, "She did quiz her every time though. I remember the birthday one. I was there. It landed like a rock dropped into still water." Then one of my aunts nodded slowly and said, "It did happen a lot, Vanessa." 6 words, calm and careful, and they did more damage to her story than anything I had said all night, because it wasn't me saying it anymore. It was Brennan, who nobody thinks picks sides, and an aunt who had sat at these dinners for years and watched every one of them happen. Vanessa's smile dropped like someone had pulled a plug. Her eyes went from Brennan to our aunt and back, and I watched her look for an angle and find nothing to hold. She couldn't call Brennan a liar, because he was there. She couldn't call our aunt dramatic, because our aunt had been careful. She couldn't turn it back on me, because nobody was looking at me. Her voice came out squeezed. "So now everyone is against me. This is exactly what she wanted. She planned this." She looked around the table, face to face, waiting for one person to agree, and not one did. The silence afterward was the loudest thing I have ever heard. She stood up, gripping the edge of the table with her knuckles white, and said, loud and desperate, "You all want the truth? I quizzed her because I was trying to help her. She has always been behind. Everyone in this family knows it. I was the one who cared enough to push her." Nobody moved. Nobody agreed. Then she turned to me and said it right to my face. "You're not smart. You got one question right. One. A month ago, that would have gone straight into the middle of my chest and stayed." I didn't raise my voice. I said, "I run every financial account at my company. I catch errors accountants miss. I have done it for 6 years, and you never once asked me about my work, because if I was good at something, your game stopped working." She said, "That's a desk job. Anyone could do that," with the little wave of the hand she uses for anything she wants to make small. And Brennan said, from his seat, 2 words. "Vanessa, stop." Not a suggestion. Everyone at that table heard it. She looked at him like he had slapped her, and then her eyes filled. And it was not the kind of crying she does on the phone to our mother. Her chin went in that small, ugly way you cannot fake. She said quietly, "I just wanted to be the one who was good at something. That's all I ever wanted." The room went so still I could hear my mother's clock ticking 2 rooms away. I looked at my sister and saw a person who did not believe she had anything solid unless somebody was standing next to her with less. I didn't feel like I had won. I just felt tired. My mother came back in with her eyes red and swollen, because she had been standing on the other side of that door hearing all of it. She stopped between her 2 daughters and said, "I didn't know it hurt you like that. I thought it was just how you 2 were." I said, "It was how she was. I never had a choice." She closed her eyes, and when she opened them, she said, "I should have said something years ago. I'm sorry." My mother had never said that to me. Not once. I didn't say it's okay, because it wasn't. I didn't say thank you, because you should not have to thank your mother for seeing you. I nodded once and she nodded back. Vanessa sat down slowly, put her hands flat on the table and looked at them. She said, almost a whisper, "I don't know how to be around you if I'm not the one who knows things." I said, "Then maybe it's time you found out who you are when you're not standing on top of me." Nobody spoke. I picked up my glass and drank. The silence stayed on the table where I put it.